Do you love a summer barbecue? Chops, burgers, sausages, all Aussie staples throughout the warmer months. And while there are some healthier options, it can be tricky to not overeat. So on today's episode of the Nutrition Couch, we chat all things barbecues and how to keep your diet on track if you are a barbecue regular. Hi, I'm Susie Burrell.
And I'm Leanne Ward.
And together we bring you the Nutrition Couch, the weekly podcast that keeps you up to date with everything you need to know in the world of nutrition. As well as barbecues, we have a brand new Designed by Dietitians product to share with you. We have another protein-rich supermarket option to review. And our listener question is all about fussy kids. So Leanne, after a very long what seemed like a very long winter with pretty crappy weather, what I've noticed with my clients since the October long weekends and the footy finals is that barbecues are back in full swing. Now, you wouldn't be an Aussie if you didn't love a barbecue, really, would you? Like, it's synonymous with summer and just life in Australia in general. And, you know, there's something incredibly simple, particularly if you're used to having to cook in the kitchen, to just hand over the protein to someone else and take care of a few salads. And everyone likes generally something in a barbecue. But I thought to myself, I don't think, spoken about them. And I've had a couple of examples come through with my clients' food diaries in the last few weeks where the barbecue, even though on the surface it might look healthy, it is far from it because inevitably there's fattier cuts of meat, multiple proteins, chops, sausages, burgers, lots of carb-heavy salads, so potato salads, potatoes, bread rolls, and then inevitably, you know, there's dessert and drinks as well. So I thought it was probably quite an opportune time to talk about how we would manage a barbecue so that you can still enjoy all of the lovely parts of it, you know, and enjoy the meats and the proteins and all the things that you would normally have, but learn how to cater as well for yourself so you can keep your diet on track. Because really, you know, I understand if people are having an occasional fast food meal or a restaurant meal where we don't have a lot of control, it can be tricky to keep things under wraps, you know, calorie wise. But in the case of a barbecue, it's actually pretty easy to make some very simple swaps and changes and keep your diet completely on track, isn't it? So the first thing I would say is do not assume that just because someone's doing protein, it's healthy, because the way barbecues work, fattier meats tend to taste better and cook easier. You know, whenever I hand my husband the lean sausages, he gets a bit annoyed because he's like, oh, these are hard to cook because it's easier to cook the fatty ones, really. So in the case of chops, chicken thigh, most burger patties, and most sausages, they're at least 20, if not 30% fat. Like if you take a good look at the sausages in the supermarket, basically the cheaper they are, the higher the fat content will be. And most of those meats are all pretty fatty. So easy swap straight away. You are better to go for the 10% fat sausages. There's the chicken ones in Woolies and Coles, as well as the peppercorn lean beef. There's the extra lean beef patties, and then Macro have a lean chicken breast that's less than 10% fat. And then in the case of chicken, you're much better to do those chicken type kebabs or marinated kebabs, which cook quite well because they are actually made with very lean chicken breast or tenderloin, and they're much, much lower in fat. So I will say to people, and this comes down to that idea that you have to prepare and take things, because I'll say to clients, well, just take your own lean sausages, and they're kind of horrified. I'm like, well, I would do that, you know, because if you go to any barbecue, they're always the fatty meat. So, you know, most of us, if we're having regular social events in the summertime, we do have to be a bit more discerning. And I wouldn't be offended if someone brought some lean protein. If anything, I'd be grateful because the cost of food is high. So, you know, I think don't be scared to do that. I think always when you can, make sure or take with you a very leafy salad because, like I said, coleslaws, commercial coleslaws, high in fat, pasta salad, potato salad. It's so easy to have, you know, your favorite Asian style salad. I love a roasted veggie one with pumpkin, eggplant, and you can even cook those veggies on the barbecue, and then just a big leafy green with a nice cheese through it. And everyone eats it when it's there. It's just making sure that you take it so that you've got it is easy. And then I would say just watch the little extras. So things like the onions are great, the veggies are great, but you probably don't need the garlic bread at a barbecue. You probably don't need the soft white bread roll, really. You know, it tastes good, but we can't have it all. And if you're having wine and you're having nibblies before the barbecue, if the goal is to keep your diet on track, I'd be ditching those little extras that very easy slip in just because we have that mindset of, oh, well, we're having a barbecue and it's pretty healthy.
Yeah, and like you said, the doubling down on the protein, like we all know that protein is healthy, yes, but there's an upper limit and a lower limit. Like not enough protein isn't great for us, and then too much protein also drives up the overall calorie load. So there's a sweet spot for protein. And if you're going to have a sausage and a chop and a chicken kebab, do you need that much? And it's all very dependent on the person, their lifestyle, their goals, but just a smart question to ask. And like Susie said, you absolutely need to either bring or get someone else to bring a really good quality salad, because when you think about it, and I always say this to my clients, they're like, oh no, I don't need to bring the salad will be there. And I said, stop and have a think for a second, what type of salad? List them out for me. And they're like, pasta salad, rice salad, potato salad. I'm like, what have these all got in common, right? And they're like, oh, they're all carby salads. I'm like, yes. Is there anything wrong with that? No. But again, if you're going to have the bread roll, you're going to have the garlic bread, you're going to have the pasta salad, the potato salad, the rice salad, there's not a whole lot of free veg in those types of salads. There might be a little bit of, spinach through one of them, but that's as much as you're going to get. So even a Greek salad goes a long way. Something with a few non-starchy vegetables in there goes a long way, or even roasted veggie kebabs are a really good one as well. So you can thread like chicken onto the kebabs as well, do chicken and veggie kebabs, or you can just do like a vegetable kebab. That cooks really, really well on a barbecue as well. And then to your point, where a lot of times when we do a barbie, it is a bit of an occasion, like it's in a celebration or it's a catch up. So there does tend to be nibblies before. There does tend to be like a good old Aussie favorite, like a pavlova or something for a dessert. So you do have to be a little bit careful with, how much you do want to indulge. But my number one tip, and we say it 100 times over on the podcast, is not go to social things starving. So even a summer barbecue tends to be a social occasion, don't go in starving, because you will eat way more on the cheese board than you plan to eat. You will need multiple serves of protein, the big bread roll, multiple serves of the carby based salads, and then you probably will have some of the dessert as well if you're genuinely hungry. So it goes a long way to have a bit of a protein shake or a protein yogurt, or even just like a mini meal, like a bit of toast with avocado or something before you go, so you're not going into that social situation starving. And that's not just summer barbecues, that's dinners out, it's parties, it's work events, it's all the same throughout the summer social season. But I think they're the three big ones: is watch the balance on your plate, don't go starving, and just keep those portions in check, and make sure you're bringing a healthy dish. If there's going to be dessert, offer to bring a fruit platter, because again, if the healthy food is there, most people will eat it. If there's going to be a charcuterie board or a cheese board, make sure that you offer to bring all the veggie sticks and a healthier type of dip for that cheese board, and that way there's some better quality choices for you to choose as well.
True, and I think there are on the boards, it's easy to load up the veggies and the healthier dips. There's quite a few of those around now that are much lower in fat. There's also things like, use shaves of cheese rather than big chunks of it. So you're still having the flavour, but you're not having the big chunk of camembert or brie. And I think in the case of desserts, look for things that are individually portioned, because whenever there's a cake or a pudding, people will often serve a big slice, and then there's ice cream. Whereas if you do a bit of a platter with mini individual pavlovas or choc dip fruit, then you can have a little taste without completely having a whole nother meal because of that heavier type dessert. So I think it's just, go on as you mean to proceed. If you have a barbecue once a month and it's your big social occasion with family, go for it. But if you're socializing regularly and having them multiple times a week, it is really worth thinking about how you can just have the healthy options on hand that you need. And it really is not a big swap. You're not going to feel deprived. You're still having just as many delicious meals, but you are easily swapping out and cutting a lot of calories out by making those swaps in there.
Absolutely. I'll just add prawns. Like in summer in Australia, prawns are an awesome lower calorie, higher protein thing to throw on the barbecue. Are they more expensive than most of the protein meats? Yes. But if you are happy to invest in some form of seafood, it's a really, really great option and a much leaner option for the barbecue as well.
True. All right, Leanne. Well, we've got a new baby, don't we? We've been trying to birth a baby for quite some time.
It's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time coming. So we have finally got our hands on the latest addition to the Design by Dietitians range, which is our Hydrate range. So we have two flavors. We have a blood orange and mango and a lemon lime. And we have been thinking about doing this for a while. Leanne in particular was very keen since she's got her sauna and is regularly dehydrated. And, I think the first thing we should say as dietitians is that for many years we would have been towing the line and said that people don't need to add electrolytes to their day-to-day intake because you drink water and we generally have good hydration. Well, no, that's a lie. We don't have good hydration. We are drinking water or think we are, and we don't need to add necessarily mineral salts to the diet. But what we're seeing, and it's a sort of an interesting area within active populations, is whether you've got a mum who is pregnant and has morning sickness, or breastfeeding, not having a lot of time to look after herself, or participating regularly in very high intensity training sessions. So you might get up at the crack of dawn and be doing, big HIIT sessions where you're burning 400, 500, 600 calories. Or you may be living somewhere very, very hot coming into summer. And what we're finding is that people are seeking out gentle electrolyte mixes that are lower in sugar than sports drinks to help aid their hydration. And I can see why people are using them. Whereas, as I said, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I would have been like, there's no need for people to add electrolytes. Now I find that a lot of people like them because if they are dehydrated, they've woken up after a big night out, or they've had a very salty meal and they're up to train, they find that they recover better when they add some simple electrolytes to their water. It helps them to reestablish their fluid balance, makes them feel better very, very quickly. I was at a big at a big 40th event in overseas recently, and I couldn't believe that friends of mine all had their electrolytes with them. I was like, wow, this is and I was like, oh, we need to give them ours because they can't be using other brands. So I traditionally have used Hydrolyte, but now here we go. We've got our own Hydrate. So this has primarily been your baby, Leanne, as you tell me. This was my idea.
I've been bugging you for a year.
You're absolutely right. And I'm on board, and we're really happy with our flavors now, thanks to all the people that we tried and voted on flavors and who tasted them for us. But we're really happy with the formulation, and they're quite a gentle mix of electrolytes, aren't they? So it's not as intense as something like Gatorade or Powerade. It's a little bit more gentle.
Not an electrolyte. So it's technically legally a hydration range. And we did that on purpose, because we wanted, my biggest issue, and I was saying this to Susie, my rant is with that most of the electrolyte companies have ridiculous amounts of sodium in them. And if you are running a marathon, if you are out on the hot roof in summer all day long, and I'll give you a perfect example. My brother's an electrician and he's got apprentices and he doesn't get up in the roof much, but it got really hot in Brisbane about a week ago and it kind of took everyone by surprise. We were wearing jumpers 1 minute and then it's like 30 something degrees outside, and he was up in the roof and he texted me and he goes, I was lying down in this lady's garage for an hour and a half vomiting. I think I've got heat stroke. And I said, you probably do. You've been up in the hot roof crawling around trying to put in your electrical wires or whatever they do. And I said, you need to get home. So he had made his apprentice drive him home. He couldn't even drive. He was that unwell. And I said, you need to go and smash some Hydrolyte. You need to get in some sodium, some potassium, some magnesium. And that is a really common occurrence. And for about, I would say 2 years now with my training, maybe more out of that postpartum period when I stepped up my training a level. On a Monday and Thursday, I'll typically do more of a conditioning session. So whether that's more of like a CrossFit style class, it's a hard class. My heart rate's 180, 190. There's not a whole lot of a break. It's about 30 to 40 minutes of training and I'm gassed afterwards. I feel fine in that workout, fine for about an hour afterwards, and I would just drink water. It's all I would drink. I'd come home and have a breakfast, and then I'd come home and I'd have a coffee. And then about an hour or so after I finished that class, I would have this raging like frontal lobe headache I could not get rid of all day. Nothing, no Panadol, no like neck massage, nothing could get rid of this headache. And then one day it clicked and I was like, I need some electrolytes. Like I'm sweating it all out and water is not enough. So again, I think, does the average person need an electrolyte? No. Do we own a supplement company? Yes. We're not going to tell you that you need something that you don't need, but there is a special group of people, like Susie said, who now are using things like hydration ranges. And our biggest issue with electrolyte ranges is the massive amounts of sodium that they have in them. Some of these brands have 600, 1,000, 1,200 milligrams of sodium in the range. It is way too much. Most standard people get more than enough sodium. If you have an office job, if you don't really exercise, you don't really need electrolytes. There's this whole thing online where it's like, water's not enough, water dehydrates you. It's not actually true. But if you are active, if you are someone who's had a really big night on the booze, if you're breastfeeding, if you're pregnant, if you have morning sickness, if you've, like us, had gastro from daycare twice this year, oh my God, it was awful. Can't even go there. It was like PTSD from it. It's awful. If you're recovering from a vomiting or a diarrhea bug, you need some electrolytes. So what we've done is we've formulated our range to be a hydration range. So it's about a half strength of an electrolyte without crazy amounts of sodium in there. So a serve of both of either the blood orange and mango, which is the most epic flavor ever, I must say, or a serve of the lemon lime, which this one surprised us. I wanted grape, but our community made us choose lemon lime. So if you're someone that doesn't love overly sweet things, the lemon lime flavor is absolutely for you. I like a sweeter type of electrolyte, and so the blood orange mango is my absolute favorite. And when we sent it out to all our family and friends, these were certainly the top two, weren't they? These are the two that everybody loved. We had about 4 flavors to pick from, and it just kept coming back that everyone wanted the lemon lime and the blood orange. So in a serve of that, very minimal calories, 10, 12 calories, I think off the top of my head, minimal protein, minimal fat, as you would expect. There's about 3 grams of carbohydrate. So on purpose, we've kept it very low carbohydrate, very low sugar. Sodium wise, we've got about 150 milligrams of sodium per serve. So a serve is 5 grams. There's a little scooper in the packet. 150 milligrams of sodium and 150 milligrams of potassium and 50 milligrams of magnesium. They're the 3 most common electrolytes people would need if they have more of like a dehydrating condition. They've done a heavy amount of exercise. They, as we said, are pregnant, breastfeeding, nauseous, vomiting, recovering from gastro, recovering from a big night out, or you've just got like you're a PE teacher out in the hot sun all day and you're sweating a lot. That is where you'd want to replace some of these electrolytes within your body. So a standard serve is 5 grams. I personally think that most people would take a standard serve if you are more of that pregnant breastfeeding, you've got increased requirements breastfeeding mums. You and I both know you just carry your drink bottle everywhere. You can never get enough water. So sometimes just adding in a few electrolytes is helpful, and our range is safe for both healthy pregnant women and healthy breastfeeding women as well. If you've got medical conditions, etc., definitely check with your doctor. I would use a serve for that. Where I would use a double serve is if I have a really client with a tough exercise, conditioning, CrossFit style class, I would double the amount. So then you're getting 300 milligrams of sodium, potassium, and 100 milligrams of magnesium. It's still much lower than the traditional, some of the traditional electrolytes on the market, but it's going to give you a really good boost of those electrolytes and minerals that you actually need. If you're recovering from, as I said, vomiting, gastrobug, diarrhea, anything like that, I'd do a double serve. If you're just going in a standard sauna 15, 20 minutes, you're probably okay with 1 serve. But if you're doing a workout and then a sauna session, I would do a double serve on top of that. So it's completely fine to take 2 or 3 serves of this a day if you need it. And we've done it that way because we want it to be an everyday hydration range for everyday people. We're not saying every single person needs it. We're saying if you do need it, this is a great alternative to the majority of electrolyte supplements in the market, which have just way too much sodium in them. And everyday people do not need that much salt. Australians get enough salt. It's really not the salt that we have an issue with. So that's why we took it right down. And the other thing I will say, which most people will probably bring up, is that, oh my goodness, sucrose is the first ingredient. Sucrose is sugar. We have added sugar in on purpose because if you do need to replace your electrolytes, you very likely need to replace a little bit of calories or sugar as well. But don't panic. Both flavors only have about 3 grams of carbohydrate, 2 to 3 grams of sugar per serve. So it's a very low sugar formulation, but there is a little bit of natural sugar in there. The range is gluten-free, it's vegan, it is low in sugar, only natural colors, only natural sweeteners, a little bit of stevia. There's nothing artificial in there. Have I covered it all off? That's basically what. Yeah,
I think it's a good summary because I think there is a lot of, I guess in our experience, we tend to see people who are either doing very little exercise or weigh like huge amounts. I think coming into summer where you're in hot Pilates studios and hot yoga studios in particular, if you do any kind of Bikram or hot yoga and sweating bucket loads, these are absolutely for you. And I have a lot of clients who are doing, up at 6 a.m. doing CrossFit, a lot of Queenslanders. We do lose a lot of fluid and it can make us feel really quite unwell. So yeah, I think it's just a nice addition to the range. I find there's a lot of mums who are constantly chronically dehydrated. There's a lot of people who party who are constantly dehydrated, and this is just a nice gentle mix that will assimilate very well with your dietary intake to help rehydrate you in a very gentle, palatable way. So find it at Designed by Dietitians. It's our latest hydrate range, and like everything, we can't wait to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, definitely. And I would also say that, yes, we develop our ranges for women's like we do with our whole brand, but it is completely fine to give it to your partners. Somebody messaged me online and said, my son's 16. He's 65 kilos. He plays a lot of sport. He sweats a lot, like he's a salty sweater. Is this appropriate for him? And I said, absolutely. So as we said, it's a very safe and gentle range. Your partners can use it. Your hubbies can use it. If your children are old enough, they play a lot of sport, they're a bit bigger, it would be completely fine for them to use as well.
Well, I actually think it's even better for the kids because what I see at my kids' sport is the kids are having full strength Powerade and Gatorade. They're having
And
full strength.
the purple, the
and
blue
it's full of
colours
sugar.
as well. Ooh.
So, you know, I've got one little boy who really doesn't drink very much, and they just run, these little kids run for hours. You know, they go from one game to the other, or cricket. You know, my kids play 2 games of cricket on the weekend. They're out in the hot sun. I've got one who's a good water drinker, but one who is not. So I'm very happy for the kids to have these. These are quite safe for children over the age of, say, 5, 6, 7. And if they are kids who don't drink a lot and they do a lot of sport, this is actually quite a good product for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a couple of samples left over. And when we were recovering from our gastro bug, we had a thing of Hydrolyte little tablets, and we ran out. And I just put the samples of the Hydrolyte into the kids' drink bottles and was like, drink this, as we were recovering from that gastro bug. So even for really little kids, if you have a huge rehydration requirement, like you are recovering from a vomiting or a diarrhea bug, I think it would be completely fine. But always best to check with, you know, your health professional for these things as well.
True. Okay, Leanne, I've got a new product to talk about with you. And I thought this has been around for a little while now and we haven't covered it. So the one I've chosen today is the Latina Fresh Protein Pasta. I've got the beef and ravioli version of it. Now, going back to my days at university, I would eat Latina pasta at least once a week. The spinach and ricotta one was my favourite, with a bit of Domino pasta sauce back in the day. Now, I know Lise from Lise and Sarah loves these products for her boys because they're just quick and easy. You can stick them into the pan and with a bit of tomato pasta sauce, and you've got sort of a filling meal for teenagers in particular quite quickly. They're very convenient. I don't buy them myself at the moment. My boys are a little bit young, but I can imagine that when they're getting to teenagers and I'm trying to fill them all the time, these will be quite a convenient product. And in general, Latina pasta, the fresh ones, they're all pretty good, you know, in the supermarket. I don't have any fundamental issues with them. I think they're a good base. You can use different portions and mix through with lots of veggies, but this is the protein version. And at time of recording, it's on sale for $6.50 for 400 grams, but it usually is $9. Now, I would think you'd get at least 2 serves, if not more. So that's pretty good, you know, $4.50 per serve, but this is specifically marketed for the protein. So the ingredients are wheat semolina, wheat semolina, ricotta cheese is high up on the list, so 2 whole foods going in straight away, milk, salt, food acids, thickener, water, egg, and then texturized pea protein is added to bulk it up. Parmesan cheese 5%, followed by beef 5%, so that's pretty low in actual meat content. Breadcrumbs, vegetable oil, salt, onion, caramelized sugar, wheat fiber, play buff. So relatively clean ingredient list. The thing that sort of stands out for me straight away is 5% beef is very low. So
Terrible.
when you'll have a turn in a minute, Leanne, wait your turn. In a say commercial lasagna, it ranges between, if you can find a 20% beef product, it's pretty high. They're rare. Most of them are about 10, 12, 16, but this at 5 is very low straight away. So they're saying a serve there's 2 serves per pack. And that cooks up to give 600 grams, so 300 gram per serve. And it gives a massive, how many is that?
2,800 kilojoules.
Okay, thanks, Anne. You'll have your turn in a minute. It's 700
I thought it was your
calories.
bad eyes. I thought you couldn't read it.
I'm struggling. She's so excited about hydration today. I was trying to do the maths actually, Leanne. 700 calories, which is not insignificant. 30 grams of protein, which is high, isn't it? Like usually for pasta, how much would you get? Like 10, 12 normally, do you reckon? Yep. 20 grams of fat. So it's not a low fat product, which I found interesting too, Leanne, because it's got that ricotta and dairy base in it. It's actually 6.7 grams per 100. So low fat's less than 3. So it's not high, but it's certainly not low. And the saturated fat's low overall at 2.8 per 100, but you'll get quite a lot, 8.4 per serve, again, because of the dairy, not so much the beef. Then you get a whopping 82 grams of carbohydrate. So even though it's high in protein, it's certainly not low in carbohydrate. 4.8 sugars just coming a little bit from the dairy. Massive dietary fiber too, 16.8, which is much higher than you would normally get with pasta. I'd say at least 3 times the amount, so the pea protein. And pretty solid in the sodium, like 2,200. That's more than the entire daily recommended intake of salt. Massive. So I'm sort of, with this product, the only people that I would use it for is teenage boys. because they have big energy demands. It's very salty if they're doing a lot of activity, but I don't actually have a lot of place for it. I think that the profile is not amazing. I don't love pea protein added and at the expense of beef, which is only 5%. And I think I would rather people have like pasta and add some meat sauce, or pasta and tuna, the plain ones. Then I would suggest clients buy this product. So I would be like, buy the regular Latina and add a tin of tuna, and you're going to be much better off than spending the extra on this and thinking it's a good product, because nutritionally the profile has some negatives. You know, it is high in sodium, relatively high in saturated fat, and it is using a processed form of protein to get those numbers up. So that's my position. We hadn't discussed it before we popped on. What do you think?
It's huge. I can't get past 83 grams of carbohydrate a serve. Like,
big,
that's
hey?
like 6 slices of bread.
Yeah,
So I agree. Like, not just teenage boys, like very active teenage boys would be the only ones I would be using it for. If you've got a teenage boy and he's a gamer and he doesn't really do much activity, this is not the product for him. It's really very active because, again, if they're active, they're sweating out, so they can kind of buffer some of that sodium. But 2,000 milligrams for a teenager is a massive whopping amount of sodium, close to 800 calories. By the time you add sauce in, and then, of course, everybody wants to add a bit of cheese on top, you're looking at 800 to 1,000 calories for a meal. So for a growing active teenage boy, not a problem. But, you know, for a menopausal woman who's just trying to eat more protein, this is not the product for you. This is not the product for me. It's not the product for you, Susie. This is not really what I'd ever recommend for a client like you. I'd use the normal ravioli and I'd be adding in a bit of tuna or chicken or something to that, bulk it up with a bit of veg and make a packet stretch to 3 meals and not 2. But, you know, it's a pretty cost-effective way to get in 30 grams of protein, but that's probably the only real benefit I see, if I'm being honest, in this product, is like 30 grams of protein for on sale, you know, maybe $3 a serve.
A truckload of calories though.
Yeah. Huge calories, huge carbs, huge sodium. And the fiber, again, not that natural type of whole grain type fiber that we want, more modified fiber being added in from that texturized pea protein. So it's not actually adding any goodness to your gut health from like a whole grain perspective either. So I wouldn't really see the huge fiber as a positive either, if I'm being honest.
I feel like they've got the pasta and just like added everything in they could just to bulk it up. Like have a truckload of salt, have a truckload of protein, have a truckload of fiber, and let's see what comes out.
See what happens, yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was interesting because as we know, straight away, as soon as people see protein on packaging, it's a very effective marketing tool to sell. But yeah, from my perspective, I'd stick to your original Latina, and if you need more protein, add a bit of tuna or chicken to any mix with some tomato passata, and you'll be probably better off nutritionally.
100%. It's definitely that health halo effect where we see protein on the label and we think, oh, that's automatically better. But you absolutely need to read your food labels, because this is really not a product I'd ever really recommend. I think the normal standard ravioli, if that's what you want, is probably a far better option for most families, most people. Yeah. All right. Moving on to our final segment of the podcast is our listener question. So the listener question is, I have fussy kids. What are some easy breakfast ideas for them? I like this question. This is a good one. This is really common, particularly for families that are just like, everyone's just so busy in the morning, like trying to get your kids out. Like mine go to daycare, most kids, you know, school. If they're older, they go to uni. Trying to get them out the door in the morning is like, it's just crazy, right? Like sometimes I'm like, where are even on my car keys? Like it's a bit of a madhouse in the morning. So I think the key to focus on is simple and balanced, and as much as you can, prep ahead. So I love, like, if you've got really fussy kids, make it a little bit fun, but don't make extra work for you. So do like a build your own yogurt pot. So give them like a bit of a bowl of yogurt. You can have, you know, little things of berries, banana, muesli, sprinkle of like some crushed wheat bix. If you give the kids a bit of choice and a bit of independence, they will actually probably eat a better balanced meal than if you just put something directly in front of them. So have a little sort of build your own yogurt pot station. That can be a really great option. They're getting a bit of protein and a bit of calcium through the yogurt, which is a great base to start with in the morning. If you do, my kids like the dippy eggs, like you do the soft boiled eggs and you dip the little toast soldiers into them, that, or like a mini omelette. You can give them options like, what do you want on your omelette? Do you want cheese? Do you want a little bit of, you know, grated vegetables, that kind of thing? Smoothies, or one of my clients, we were talking about for her fussy kids, we came up with the idea of smoothie pops now that it's like summer. So what you would put into a smoothie, you've got milk, you've got yogurt. Kids need a bit of extra fat, so nut butter, hemp seeds, chia seeds, a bit of oats, that kind of thing. Whatever you put into your smoothie, blend it and then put it in those little ice popsicle, you know, molds and freeze them, and the kids can have like a healthy ice cream for breakfast, but it's like a really nourishing smoothie pop. That can be a really good option for fussy kids. If you want to do pancakes or pikelets, you've got to start with a base of a whole meal, like a wholemeal flour. You just have to. And you can do things like grated apple, grated zucchini. You can mash a bit of banana in there, put some chia seeds in there. So pancakes and pikelets can actually be a really nourishing option for fussy kids. Same thing with like a homemade banana bread, a homemade chocolate zucchini bread. And these are things you can prep in advance. You can slice, you can freeze, you can bring out for a busy morning. Like often my kids will be eating a homemade muffin on the way to swimming lessons. And then we go straight from swimming at 8 o'clock in the morning, straight to daycare drop off. I drive David into the city for work. I come back, I start my day. So it's like a manic, like 2 hours on like a Wednesday morning for us. So often they might have like a blended smoothie in a cup or just like a homemade banana bread. So those are things I find work really well for fussy kids. And if you can, again, just like pimp out what the kids love. Like if they like a muffin, if they like a banana bread, if they like a pancake, just pimp it up with some like healthier options. A bit of grated zucchini, a bit of mashed banana, or, you know, grated apple can go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they are great options. As the kids get older, it's all about grab and go. And those old days where we saw people sitting down having bowls of cereal just doesn't happen. I actually use chocolate milk in a popper because it's just grabbing and going. I think just a slice of bread with peanut butter or Vegemite, you know, soft bread, my kids love that. If it's fresh, they're happy to have that. I think that a tube of yogurt, the yogurt tubes with no added sugar, you can get a whole range now. I think there's the Tama Valley. There is what's that brand? Farmers Union have got a kids one that's got no added sugar as well. I think they're not messy. I think they're great. I actually even think something like a cheese and crackers is better than nothing when you've got kids who are really, you know, fussy. So I think the thing that I'm trying to do is that if you look at grab and go snacks, they're generally high carbohydrate. So if you think like some cereal in a container or a muesli bar or little biscuit, they're all carb. So we want to give them some nutritional content and some protein. So whilst those things I've described are not the best, like chocolate milk doesn't have added sugar, at least it's got some protein. And the same if you have a slice of wholemeal, whole grain bread with some peanut butter, they're getting some good fats, or avocado, or a couple of crackers. You know, if kids will eat crackers with cheese or with peanut butter, the corn thins, they're all options that are particularly quick and easy and also grab and go. So I think it's just a matter of getting something into them, and something that I would rather give them something like that has some nutritional quality than a biscuit or something just all carbohydrate. So if you can get something with a bit of protein, that would be my preference.
And if you are due to have that little bit of extra time the night before doing like an overnight oat or a chia pudding, then they can kind of eat that on the car on the way to school or something. That can go a long way as well, because you can get quite a lot of nourishing ingredients in if you've got the time.
Yeah. Or I like the homemade muffins. Like if I make muffins, I'll do a base of Greek yogurt, wholemeal flour. Sometimes I'll put a bit of zucchini grated in there as well, the eggs, you know, banana, some berries. Like my kids will eat those. I think they're actually quite good. They don't have a lot of protein, but they're still better than sort of anything carby. Or even like a muesli cookie with an oat base. You know, when my kids were younger, I would do those with mashed banana, and then I'd get them and dip them in a bit of chocolate at the bottom. So again, not a lot of protein, but still whole grain, a better option than a lot of commercial quick go options. So yeah, and I think with kids, it's just sometimes mixing it up or different kind of varieties of something they can grab and go that's novel more than anything.
I will quickly say though, you mentioned like not a lot of protein. For our listeners, don't forget that little kids don't need a lot of protein. Like 5 to 10 grams of protein is more than enough for a child under 10 years of age. Once they get into the teenage years, yes, 10 to 20 grams of protein, but kids do not need 30, 40 grams of protein. Kids do not need high protein yogurts. Kids do not need 4 boiled eggs for breakfast. It is far too much protein for them. The main nutrients they need are carbs and fat, and yes, a little bit of protein is important. So like Susie said, a cup of milk is more than enough protein for most children under about 12 years of age. So just be mindful of that. They don't need a whole whack of protein. When we say that we want a bit of protein in there, a bit of nut butter on a slice of whole grain bread is going to give us about 6 to 8 grams of protein, and that is actually more than enough for most small children.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, 5 to 10 would be what I was looking at. So a glass of milk with a bit of Milo is actually a pretty good option.
Compared to, if they just ate plain rice crackers by itself, because that would just be all carb.
Yep, good. Yep, okay.
Amazing.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of the Nutrition Couch for another week. Please keep telling your friends about us and check us out on our new YouTube channel if you'd like to see what we look like when we're chatting away, and we're trying to grow that audience. So please tell your friends about us and give our new hydrate a go. You'll find that at designbydietitians.com, and we'll see you next week for our regular episode drop. Thanks for listening.
Catch you guys next week.